This might just be the most important concept I have ever talked about online because it is the number one separator between those that stay stuck at their current revenue level and those that scale systematically and consistently. Not the fastest, but the most consistent, to where every time they get presented with some sort of plateau or problem in their business, they are able to solve that problem and go to the next level. And it all comes down to this concept of making decisions. Now, this originally came to mind after seeing a handful of things go on across agency clients, consulting clients, and even in some mentorship and mastermind programs that I'm actively a part of, to where people struggled to make decisions or committed to the wrong decisions because they do not understand the fundamentals of making a decision in general. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to make decisions, the foundation of a good decision, the foundation of a decision in general, the common problems we see with clients across the board when it comes to making decisions, and also with other agencies, so vet your agency as well for some of the things we'll talk about a little bit later, and how to actually make accurate decisions that serve the end goal, not the current goal, the end goal. The first thing you guys need to understand is the foundation behind making a good decision or making a decision in general, because this is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't truly understand what a decision is. A decision is made up of essentially three components. You have your current state, you have a guess, and you have outcomes. That's it. It's made up of three different parts. I want you to think about a decision similar to you would science class, which for some of you like myself is not the most fun the older I got, but this makes the biggest difference between those that stay stuck and those that sail consistently. Because all we're doing when we make a decision is we're making a hypothesis or we're making an educated guess based on our current state and based off the outcomes of the last guess. So what does this look like in practice? Let's say I make a hypothesis. That hypothesis is going to be based on the current state, which we'll just label as 1, to then make the decision. As soon as we make that decision, we typically will have an outcome. That outcome either worked in our favor or didn't. If it worked, then we move to the next. We make the next hypothesis. Or if it worked to some degree, again, not every guess is going to be 100%, but if it worked to some degree. If the decision completely flopped, well, then we need to go back to the hypothesis and make a new one. The key here is now we have an outcome, which is in addition to the current state. And so we can now improve our hypothesis. We can improve the decision that we made. And so that's all a decision is. Based on the outcome, I'm either making another educated guess using the outcome, or I'm rethinking my initial hypothesis considering the outcome. That's all a decision is. It's very, very straightforward. And so in practice, what this may look like is, let's say I'm painting a picture. And let's say my first hypothesis or the first thing I decide to paint is a person. Immediately, my brain's going to go to the next one because that was, quote, a successful action. So what's the next thing I decide to do? Well, it's a person on a blank canvas. So let's give him some grass. Let's give him something to stand on. I have made that decision based off the outcome, based off this here. I have made the decision to add some grass. And so now I make my next guess. Well, I've added the grass, so what should come after that? Well, should probably be a sky somewhere in here. So let's add a sun. Now that I have the sun, well, it's probably hot, so let's add a hat. And notice what I'm doing. I am making decisions based off the last one because I now have more contextual information to make the next decision. That's all this is. Oh, he looks a little bit lonely. Let's add a person. And it was all based on the initial one, and as I begin to add context, the business begins to grow. The image begins to become complete. That's all it is. Your business is the same way. When you first started your business, did you have any idea what you were doing? Excuse my French, but fuck no. Fuck no, you didn't know what you were doing. So you had to just guess. The best way to think about this is when you're hiring. When you hire people, I remember the first person I hired at my old detailing business when I was like a 19-year-old kid. Great employee. Second employee. Great employee. Third employee. Great friend. Bad employee. Fourth employee. Not really a friend. Bad employee. And so I've begun to collect more test data to then better vet for future employees. I now run a completely digital agency. First employee, some reason, I didn't think that tech was important. I didn't think the hardware was important. So I hired somebody and it was a nightmare. So I had to fire him, let him go. Now I know for the next one, I need good tech. That's all we're doing is we're making that initial decision and we are beginning to test against it. The only thing I want to emphasize from a foundational perspective is the concept of compounding. So when you make decisions, let's say decision A, the first decision I made, you need to understand the compounding effects of that decision. Let's say I get into a relationship and let's say that individual is great. They're a lot of fun in the moment, but I'm starting to see some signs of this person not being the best fit long term. I can do two things. I can either find a new person and end the current relationship knowing what's going to happen, or I stay in it and I end up dealing with the negative compounding effects of a bad decision. Your decisions begin to get amplified one way or another. And so you need to know when to cut it off and make a new one, and cut it off and make a new one, and cut it off and make a new one, so that you continuously trend upward. Even if you start drifting here, cut it off, new one. That's the key thing here. And so the way that we do this in marketing and sales are typically what are called A/B tests. Where again, let's take the same scenario. I draw a person, but let's say this time I decide to put him in the ocean. And then maybe that looks like he's drowning, so I add a boat. And then maybe I put a fish here. And maybe it's raining. If we look at this in a business context, objectively doesn't matter, but let's say there's now a price tag associated with it. Let's say this daytime picture is everywhere. It's a commodity. It makes me less money, but I double down on it because I think it's all I know. I didn't take the blinders off. I stayed on this negative path and then I end up making less money. Is it a bad thing? No, but I never challenged my existing set of beliefs. Whereas if I had just switched and I did the guy in the water with the ship and the fish and the rain, maybe it made me more money. I didn't cut the decision off and decide to test the new path. That's a key foundational principle with decision making in general, is knowing when to cut it off. Because a common problem, and this leads me to the second point of the video, a common problem with decisions is people's ego gets in the way, fear gets in the way, or to make this even easier, their emotions. When you let your emotions impact your decisions, specifically in a business sense, you will, pardon my French, fuck yourself every single time. Your emotions do not dictate your decision making inside of a business. When there's a concrete outcome that you are looking for, you cannot let your emotions dictate the outcome or dictate the decision. Now, if you want to get into your personal life and you want to let emotions take over there, it's a little bit different. But most of you watching this video run some sort of business. You cannot let your ego, your fear, your emotions impact your decision making. It will fuck you every single time. So we need to avoid that. The second problem I see all the time in business is they don't take a big picture view of their resources. And not just their resources, but their resources relative to leverage. We had a call with a mentor of mine this week, and he addressed the concept of this whole Claudebot thing that's going around, this AI agent stuff, this super technical skill set that people are investing a lot of time into. And he got on the call, and he basically said, you guys are all being dumbasses because you have now taken your eye off the ball. You have spent all of your time figuring out this new flashy thing, and you have gotten rid, or you have not only decreased the amount of resources you're making on a day-to-day basis, but you have also decreased the amount of time, which is another form of resource that you are allocating towards making resources. As a business owner, and this is something that I believe is like the most important thing above all else, and it's why whenever I have a problem, I immediately join some group to solve it for me. Even if it requires a little bit of my work, I'm not going to do learning myself. As a business owner, you need to be focused on revenue driving actions. The simplest fucking thing in the world. Blows my mind that people don't acknowledge this. You need to be focused on revenue driven actions. Revenue driving actions. It is the only thing, because that is where the leverage occurs. If I make 20K in a day, but I decide to put half of my day towards learning a new skill that has no chance of making money or a low chance of making 20K in a day, I'm being an idiot, because I could just pay somebody 10 grand to do it and I would still make more money, guaranteed. Guaranteed, because I am freeing up time. I have an understanding of my resources and the leverage that I have as the business owner, as the rich person. This is something that people miss all the time. Because the other thing that I find interesting is you've got guys like me that have to pull myself out of risk when it comes to money. If I see a website online and I end up spending $1,000 to figure out what they're doing, sometimes that will scare the shit out of me. It's like chump change. It's $1,000, whatever. You know what I mean? But I guard my money resource a lot more than I guard my time resource sometimes. Whereas I may go out to have a drink or two with some friends and that turns into a whole night because I'm not guarding the risk of my time, the risk of losing that time, the leverage of losing that time. And so when you make decisions, again, remove yourself from the emotions, but also understand the resources and the leverage you have in your current state. Is it better to learn it myself because I cannot afford somebody to do it for me, or do I just pay somebody immediately? What percentage of my income am I deploying to learn the skill so that I don't have to lose more money by doing it? Focus on revenue driving actions. That is a secret. This here is a secret to all decision making inside of your business. Revenue driving actions over everything else. Unless you're going to make more than your hourly by doing this thing, do not fucking do it. Makes no sense. And the last part with common problems that I find super, super interesting that a lot of people don't take into account is the risk profile itself. A lot of people will completely ignore the core driver of all decisions, which is risk. People avoid decisions because they're too risky. People take decisions because there's just enough risk. You have to understand the risk profile. And this pairs really well with this revenue-driven actions model. If I am a founder or a business owner or a sales rep that drives a ton of revenue for my business, whatever it might be, even in normal life, look at your life like this. A majority of your actions should be consistent, should be revenue driving. Let's call that 75%. After that, let's say 15%, well, let's say 20% goes to predictable bets. And then 5% goes to high risk. That's how you should be viewing your decisions. 75% of the time, I should be doing something that's revenue driving. 20% of the time, I should be doing something that's predictable. Market research, trying out a new tool, doing things that I can predict the other side of it. 5% of your time should be spent on high risk actions, learning AI, getting into the weeds with a completely new approach to something, learning a new role entirely. Those are considered high risk activities. And so for some of these higher risks, if I want to take more bets, I just deploy more capital. That's it. But it's like a lot of people I see, again, on the agency side, consulting side, they make decisions based off the outcome sometimes too much, or the shininess of it. It's funny because it's a lot like somebody that goes and buys scratch offs every time they go to the gas station. It's like, dude, 100% of the time you have the opportunity to take a high risk, you take it. That is stupid as fuck. It's like thinking you're going to make all of your money from the lottery. What are we doing, bro? Let's place those side bets. I'm not telling you not to I think the lottery is a fun little thing to just take gambles on. Fuck it, you know? But majority of your time should be spent making money, not betting on the lottery. And a lot of you guys will do that. You'll see a new piece of tech come out. You're already doing a couple $100,000 a month, and you go, oh, let's go do that instead of making money. Let's try to hit it big. Let's try to make 100 million. What are we doing? That's why SaaS founders are usually shitty founders, because they take these massive fucking bets right out of the gate. Whereas the guys that have an info business or an agency business and then start a SaaS that's internal, that then becomes external, and they end up exiting because they took the risk internal when they already had revenue. They already understood business. They got it. They understood how to make decisions systematically. You can swing for the fences. You can hit a grand slam. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you not to take risks, but really think about what you're doing. And those are like the key things when it comes to making decisions that people get wrong. Now, how does this apply to marketing? Because I've kind of touched over the fundamentals. I've touched over everything there. How does this apply to marketing when you are making decisions? You need to understand one concept, which I briefly touched on in the beginning, and it's incentives. Incentives of your team, incentives of you, incentives of your campaigns, incentives of different roles. You need to understand the incentives of the organization, because the incentives will drive the outcome that occurs. In marketing, number one incentive we have is ROAS. 9 times out of 10 in the businesses typically doing like below 20 to 50 million. Anything above that, you start getting into branding, and then it's more about awareness. But for a lot of people I'm speaking to, it's return on your ad spend, return on capital. What is my cost per capital? Is it low? Because again, capital is going to be a little bit different, but is it low? Is it what I'm looking for? Is it too high? So I need to understand ROAS. From there, I can now figure out if I need to work on marketing or if I need to work on sales. From there, I know if it's click-through rate, CPMs, or is it show rate or close rate? The problem I see a lot of people do, and this drove me nuts because we had somebody come in and help consult on a deal, but maybe it's my ego getting in the way, I don't know. But I think it's a ridiculous way to think about things, is they looked at the campaign and they said, awesome, your CPMs are in range. That's not the problem. They did not start the question by asking, what's ROAS on the account? I don't give two shits about my CPM. If I have a $300 CPM and I'm running at a 7x return on my ad spend, I'm just going to spend more money. I'm not going to try to fix my CPMs. Very, very straightforward. If let's say my ROAS started to dip, well then now I can look, okay, is it a marketing or is it a sales problem? If I see salespeople performance decrease, well then I'll look, is it a show rate issue or a close rate issue? And my decision making is going from the top down rather than from the bottom up. It's also important to understand incentives, not just from that standpoint, but also when it comes to why decisions are being made. Remember, people make decisions based off ego, fear, emotion, current resources. And so I need to take that into account when speaking to different people in the organization. Is my marketer being cautious because they don't have that much money in the bank? Is my salesperson being lazy because they've got some personal issue going on? What are the incentives driving that decision? That will help give me a better picture as to what's going on as well. Oftentimes what we'll see is sometimes lead quality will not change on a campaign, yet sales start to dip. And when you ask the salespeople, they say lead quality's dip. In reality, you're looking at everything, you're listening to calls, these are perfectly good leads. So all you do, and this is where it gets interesting, is you just tell the salespeople, hey, we fixed it. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. You don't change anything on the marketing side. All of a sudden, boom, whole campaign back profitable. Didn't change a fucking thing. I've done that a handful of times across different client accounts. After a mentor relayed this to me in one of the group calls, he brought this concept up. I said, let me try it out because I haven't changed a fucking thing. That's all I did. I changed some stuff. Let me know what you think about results. All of a sudden, sales team immediately upticked in performance. Gotta understand incentives. Gotta understand the existing narrative around a decision. I think that'll be the last thing I'll put in this video is understand the narrative around a decision. As you'll hear from people. All I said was look out for the incentives. What are people incentivized to tell you? You'll be able to predict their behavior a lot. That's it. If you want to understand more about how we make decisions on a marketing front, this is typically it. And then all we're doing is looking at the math. There's going to be a link below. You can book a call to speak to myself or member of the team to learn a little bit more about whether you want to work with us on the agency side or you want some consulting help. That's all we're doing is we're looking top down. What's ROAS on the account? Then we're figuring out, is it a marketing or a sales issue? We're looking at the math. We go back to the original drawing here. I'm looking at decision A versus decision B. What made more money? That's it. I hope that helps you guys in making decisions inside of your business. If you have any questions, you want more content like this, drop a comment below. I appreciate you guys for watching and I will see you in the next one.